So, all right. Thank you for setting up the recording.
Right?
Yes.
Better late than never.
Yeah,
better late than nothing. So this is working group 3 scope meeting. We're Friday, March 15, and we're 44 minutes into the meeting, and we start recording now. So I was just saying, Tal, I'm suggesting that we move on from the topic of CAPI, just so we can see the rest of the presentation and the proposal for the cluster create OCloud cluster create OCloud cluster user story. As both, I think, as everyone is agreeing here, is CAPI is a implementation detail that we probably will discuss more during the design phase. But at this point, it's understood the various expectations in terms of the dynamics that we would like to have here. So if it's okay with everyone, I just suggest Stefan to move on with the rest of the presentation, please.
So as I said, then the thinking with these two separate Nephew implementations is that you have like templates on the OCloud cluster side. I mean, they are the master templates. I mean, they are the originals that are defined according to what I showed them previously in. Let's see if I can. It's interesting. Sometimes you lose the control of paging. Okay, no. As I said, then on the ORAN specification, then you have this OCloud level cluster template. This is the master one. Here you have all the artifacts. I mean, this is the sharp, template. You have a representation of that one up in Nephew with a number of exposed characteristics and capabilities and so on. Then. So those are the ones we are storing in the cluster template repo then on the SMO FOCOM side. You need to have some sort of a mapping between these two. And this is where my suggestion, we can go to that page, we can take this page later, but in the matter of time then, my suggestion is that we leverage on the workload cluster resource that is already introduced in Nephew. I mean, currently it is used for injection of a few parameters that are like well defined there. And our suggestion is that we are extending this. So we introduce an O2IMS section. These parameters now is just for illustration purposes. We talked about it in the work group. This will be refined during like design phase. But the crucial thing here is that you would need to have those information properties in order to be able to identify on the SMO side and which OCloud that is the target, which site in the OCloud that is the target, and then the template ID. And the template ID is something that needs to then match between like the template or the template package definition on the SMO side and the template package definition on the OCloud side. For now, I'm suggesting that this is more of a name reference that is not really related to like a Nephew kept packaged revision or something. It's more of a package name, because this would be a name reference that should also work then if you have a non-Nephew-based O2IMS implementation. I mean, the O2IMS interface should carry this name reference, and it should be understood then by an IMS, for instance, that it is not based on Nephew. And that is why I think it should be something more abstracted here than rather than like something like package specific also. And then the other thing, you have a set of input data that can be completely like cluster template specific. And then you have these characteristics and the metadata then that I showed that is part of what is currently defined in the ORAN specification then. So this is information that basically we could discover. So when we discover the template from the OCloud side via the O2IMS interface, then we will generate a corresponding package on the SMO side and copy that information then up into that package. And that is the way we basically will show that, like, okay, what kind of package is this? What kind of cluster can you create with this package then? And basically, this is the information then that we will use to trickle down into the internals then, like other manifest files that will be used to do the actual deployment. So the way, okay, here I have this. Now we're coming back to copy, but if we say we have something else, we like whatever framework that we want to use in order to do the southbound adaptation, we have the common template on the SMO side. This one is always going to support an underlying driver or manifest for O2IMS. So in this case, I exemplify it with a cluster kind for an O2IMS cluster class. Because here we will always talk O2IMS southbound. So the important piece is that all SMO packages here would look the same then, no matter of what O-cloud you have beneath. Then on the IMS side, there you would have then still this main package part with this workload cluster YAML and the workload cluster CR. They should be the same then. So these two would be the ones matching each other with the properties I showed them. And then under the hood, you have your implementation specific things. So if you have, if you still are using copy Metal 3 or the Capo plugin here in an implementation, you might use that. If you have something else, like I know, like Google TNA has their own custom resources, you could, include them as well then in your package, and still expose this common workload cluster CR then that is used to basically drive what you are responding when you are querying for a package on the O2IMS interface. And yeah, this would show them basically down here. It's a bit small now then, but here I basically have this that, yeah, this internal, it could be absolutely whatever then, as long as you have an agreed workload cluster CR, what you expose upwards. The further internals then in your package can be then IMS specific. Okay, and this one is
just one question that. Sorry, I didn't raise my hand. So this, I thought the workload cluster, because now you have something. You have included the attributes for the templates within the workload cluster, and then in that one, in another one, you showed that the O-cloud would have more specialization with respect to certain, kind of new requirements. That's the CNI plugins and all that needs to be added. So at what point is that specialization done? Is it done somewhere in as when IMS receives this particular CR from the SMO or from the FOCOM?
That is how I see it. So if the request come down here and you refer to the O-cloud 2-edge DU cluster here, this package internally then would contain all those specific manifest files or references to configuration files and so on then, in order to create the cluster. So the thing we will convey down from the SMO side over O2IMS will be limited to the instance specific data then, so IP addressing and so on, that must be unique for every cluster instance, while everything else is then defined in your internally then on the O-cloud side in the O-cloud cluster template.
No, I was thinking from a information modeling perspective. I thought the template is at a higher hierarchy where and then your workload cluster is derived from it. That was my mental picture. But
so I was looking into. This is basically the template we have for this workload cluster template package today, and it contains this workload cluster YAML file and with just these CNICE parameter settings today. And then you have this one is important. This is the package variant that creates this cluster copy kind package then. And here basically the thinking I had was that you here, instead of then this cluster copy kind, here you have now then the cluster copy O2IMS package reference. If we decided to do something else, it would be something not copy, but just cluster O2IMS package then. This one would always be here then. So here you really feed the information in then in order to expose what data you have fetched from the corresponding OCloud cluster template. So this is the SMO workload cluster template. And basically it contains that workload cluster and the YAML for this AutoIMS provider plugin invocation. And then on the next page, you have this copy cluster template package. So this will be either copy or whatever we have. But here is where you trickle things down then. So you get things from the workload cluster injection and can then pass that into this template. So this is where you eventually need the data in order to drive the AutoIMS provisioning. So here, this is where you would need to have all the information about like the target cluster template, which site you are going to deploy in, and the template input data, so that all the data you need to send over the AutoIMS interface then will be copied here. But as I said, this would be basically then injection coming from the workload cluster template down to this cluster YAML file. And then what we said earlier in the meeting related to, I can go back to it, these resources. We talked about, what was it? These pink resources here, we say that there are some cloud global resources in your cluster that would be there. So my suggestion is that those parts, we make them as a part of the template on the on the OCloud side. And so here you have those things like the config sync YAML and everything you need to deploy for global settings in your workload cluster once it has been created. That will be then in the OCloud cluster template. You don't need to have those manifest files at all then on the SMO side, because it is not the SMO nephew cluster that is deploying those parts, and it's done on the IMS side completely.
Sorry, I was speaking on mute. Thank you, Stephen. I think this is great. I like the level of details that we have here. I think this is very useful. We jumped in a little bit into the design phase. What would be good is, I think, I don't know if there is any question from the group here beside, I think we all want to jump into the implementation slash design phases. What is not clear for me at this point is the additional development efforts. So it would be some sort of a Nefio cluster controller, and then probably some KRM, or I just saw Wim's comment on the chat. We could probably leverage the work that has been done with NF2 infra to create that higher level intent and hydrate it. But anyway, I don't need to solve this now. My point is more, so what should be the next step? Because I think there is good consensus that this use case is well thought of. We have enough details. Yeah, so I'll open it up.
I have made some proposals here. Okay, this is now then still copy oriented, so we need to decide on whether we shall make it more general now and leave it for the design phase to decide on what to actually use. But all in all, I mean, I have this phase 1 and phase 2, where most important than in phase 1 that we have this, we focus on implementing an Aura on AutoIMS NBI, like Aura pre-AutoIMS. I mean, the specification is not there, but we need to do something that we can then implement towards. So this will be the NBI exposed by the IMS nephew side then. And then correspondingly then on the SMO side, we need to have something. If it is a copy provider plugin or some other kind of provider logic, that then can implement the client side of this interface. So that is like one thing. Then we talked about like the infrastructure inventory. We should have at least represent that on both sides, even though we don't expose the AutoIMS inventory API in phase 1. And then this workload cluster CR, the changes there with this AutoIMS properties. That is another suggestion.
Okay. Yeah, thank you for that recap. Team, I think we're going to take probably 5 to 10 more minutes. So I apologize that we're going to run late on our call. If you need to drop, I'm sorry. But I'll open up the question to Karen and Wim now.
Yeah, I think you asked about process as to what happens next. My understanding was that this meeting was an intended sort of handover point from the kind of the user story definition phase through to the sort of design phase that happens in SIG 2, and that if this is agreed to be enough level of detail to get onto that design phase or not.
Thanks, Karen. Yeah, and I think it is based on the conversation. Wim?
Yeah, I mean, I agree. So basically, I think the thing is that we have to flush out some details, right? So I think that's where the discussion is. It's not about the use case; it's about the how, not the what, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's my comment.
Okay,
I mean,
good.
and we can do that. I mean, we are starting to do that anyhow.
Yeah,
So,
we are. Yeah.
correct. So in other words, I think we should get to that level of detail, right? And then once there is a bit of a consensus on that, I think we should, we can then see, okay, what the real implications are. But I think high level, I think Stefan did a very good job. Stefan and team did a very good job here. So thanks for that, Stefan. Yeah.
Thanks, Wim. So I think we're good to say that we want to go forward with this use case for R3. We have enough here to quote unquote approve this. And now it's a matter of going into the low level design. And then, and that work needs to happen. I don't know exactly where, but conjointly between SIG 1 and SIG 2, right?
It was supposed to happen in SIG automation, right? Because that's
right, exactly. But I don't know. Do you have forum so do we? Yeah. So Wim, Tal, should we jump on SIG 2 call and have this discussion? How do we bring this home, basically?
So my proposal is to continue to use your meetings to do that.
Okay. So this meeting, this one?
The LRAN meeting, Wim, or the scope meeting? I don't care which one.
Yeah.
We're
okay.
Yeah, the ORAM meeting.
Okay. So
because see, the thing is the following, right? So I'm just giving my opinion, so Tal should give his opinion, or other people should give their opinion. The thing is the following, right? So we have various use cases from various places. If we do everything in the SIG2 meeting, right, there is no way we can flush all of this stuff out. So if we do not divide and conquer, then we are not going to succeed. So my view was a little bit, okay, we need, so in other words, there is a phase right now there where the other use cases that you presented, I think, Tim, right? It's just you use what we have, and we have to take some packages. We have to create an operator. There is no infrastructure needed specifically for those use cases. I'm talking about the what is it? The real-time rig and those type of stuff, right? So business as usual is what I call it, right? So let's move them on.
The only unique one with the NFC, right?
Correct. So here we need a little bit more of a discussion, right, on the details and stuff like that. So that has to be flushed out. And I would suggest to use the oral meeting to do so, because there you have the people with the knowledge and so on. And most likely, I'm expecting that also those people will be interested to help in the implementation. And so as such, my recommendation is to use that meeting to flush out the next level of detail, and then we can see going forward. Of course, we cannot, that meeting should then also be used to go to R4 at some point, but I think we are at the point where that I think it's important to flush this out, because that information that people gain who are not going to be using or helping in the implementation is useful for them to then in the architecture for release 4 and so on and so forth, you see. So it has mutual benefits irrespective of what you as a person are interested to do then going forward. But yeah, I'll let other people comment.
So Tim, are you good with this? I mean, if Tim, you're good with this, then we can go and move on.
I'm good with whatever the group wants to do, because I think we want to just move this thing forward. We're just learning how to work together.
All right, sweet. So then let's continue the lower level detail next week in the Wednesday ORAN call.
Okay.
And
I do have a quick question, right? So I also have 3 other or 4 other use cases, right? that really we've decided that we're going to do this work with. Now, the question I have is that what I don't know to do is give guidance to those groups. Are they working in SIG automation? In other words, are they tracking it through the issue systems? How are we tracking the next phase of this work, guys? I'm just trying to understand.
So what we normally do is we create issues for all the things that we want to work on. So basically, what we do in SIG2 is we create issues for the items that we agreed upon, and then these are the work items that then are going to be used and tracked in SIG2 to track that work, right? So
I knew that's why you were doing it. What I wanted to do is make sure that I was instructing those groups, those leaders, to start building those issues and the SIG automation.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the next step, sorry, I just want to capture it. So the next step is to start populating the JIRA with these the various tasks for these user stories.
Correct. Yeah. So what we should do is for each of them is create issues in the SIG2 tracker, right? And then with the individual items. So what we typically do is we create like how do we call it again? It's like an overarching one, in which we list then the individual one. So you have like an overarching epic, as we call it, right? And then we have individual work items in each of them, because you can then divide and conquer. So there is a few examples. I think Steven did recently too, one for observability and for SDK, right? But if you want, we can help people to how to do that, right?
Yes, and I want to. Okay, so I want to create a little bit of a process on how we go from approved user story to populating this thing. That's on me. So I will capture it here for next SIG meeting. Okay.
One thing that we have to do. Yeah. Okay. Maybe it's too much for now, but we have to see is how we work, because we are moving into a different mode of operation than we are used to, right? And I think it's important for everybody to understand how it works, because before we kind of in SIG2 we package it all together and it's like that. Now I think we are going into a mode where we are trying to do more in parallel, but that means that we have to somehow do some coordination somehow and a bit better. But it also might be that we might have to put in like, okay, we have to get this by that time, right? If you didn't deliver, you might not hit release 3 or something like that, right? So I don't know, I'm just speaking for myself right now, but we need to flush this thing out how we work. But I believe that if we divide and conquer somehow, we will all benefit.
Okay, so I will bring that up Monday, and I will work on something next week. I don't have time between now, sorry, and Monday, but I'm taking the action to figure that out next week. So Tim, I know you asked the question Monday already. I'll get you an answer by Friday next week if you.
Yeah, I'm just going to kind of instruct the team, the team leads the team leads, but the people that are most invested in those work user stories, what to do next, right? So in terms of getting the process, that'd be Wednesday.
Okay. Okay. Well, thank you all. Thank you, Tim. I think you're helping us, create these processes as we move forward with the well-structured team that you have, and we're getting there. So I appreciate everyone's effort. And with that, happy Friday and good weekend for those going on weekend now, and good afternoon for those whose afternoon is starting.
Yeah. Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks. Bye.